So I'm really positive about Onyx Boox devices. They're excellent e-ink tablets. And in honesty, if I wasn't a reviewer, then these are the ones I would be buying. For full transparency, they do send me these devices in order to review them, but we've never had any agreement beyond an NDA so that I can produce content ready for launch days. They've never paid me to say anything. I'm simply impressed by the way they handle e-ink tablets. But today I want to address some common gripes with books, some common comments that people make on my channel and that I hear of complaints about their devices. And all of these four, I understand them all, but I do think they're occasionally made into bigger deals than they actually are. So to start with, it's battery life. I'm afraid that currently this seems to be a trade-off with the high refresh rate technology that they're using, the Book Super Refresh technology they call it. And that gives us ultra clarity and high refresh rates, and no other company is managing to do that as well. In fact, using devices with Kaleido free from other companies, I can tell you the Boox is streets ahead. And the battery life in those other devices actually seems to be lower. It is worth checking out Jeffrey Moss's video where he's done some comparisons of the battery life on the Boox Note Air 3C and in various different devices. And he's used different scenarios, different use cases, putting different strains onto the battery. There's two key takeaways. There's quite intense strain for videos and for browsing, and much less for e-reader apps. There's a pretty intense strain for the note-taking app as well. And there's a much higher consumption when moving between 50% brightness to 100% brightness. Understanding physics, then that doesn't surprise me. Things like productivity apps where you are using high refresh rates or browsing or video, you are refreshing that screen and moving those e-ink capsules many more times per second than just a single refresh of a page turn, for instance. So do check out that video, I'll put it in the description. But for now, know that essentially your battery life will vary depending on how you use the device. Personally, I'm finding that if I was to use it all day intensively, then I would have to charge it at the end of the day. But if I was just using it for reading, then I would probably get several days out of it. For my normal use, which is sort of sporadic, occasionally referencing it for notes, occasionally using a productivity app, probably a total screen usage time of about 2 to 3 hours a day. That's lasting me 3 days really. The next one is Android versions. Now it is a really common criticism to criticize Boox for not being on the latest Android version. And the latest Boox devices are on Android 12 and the previous ones are all stuck on Android 11. And okay, that is an issue. But if it was an easy thing to do to upgrade to the latest Android, I think the Boox would do it. I think there's a trade-off here for Boox using system on chips which are 3 years old. They're usually using processors that are 3 years behind the current sort of mid-range chips. And that's a sensible thing to do because you don't need quite the cutting edge power on an e-ink tablet. And that will bring the price down from where it would be. I know they're expensive, but that's because of the e-ink screen rather than the internals. I don't think that Boox are doing that because they don't care or they can't be bothered. In fact, I think it would be an easier job for them if they were just able to keep them all on the latest Android. Next, it's a really big one, security concerns. So security online, it comes from lots of things. Use of two-factor authentication, for instance, in your apps. Use a screen lock. Use complex and different passwords in all of your different apps. Be really careful around phishing emails and installing apps from unknown sources. Do all that and you will keep yourself secure online. For some time now, Android has been pretty secure. It's the soft squidgy bit that tends to open the door for bad actors to get into your tablet. But the main complaint comes from a bit of a presumption that the Chinese government is spying on us all. Sure, there is likely to be some mass data collection going on in China. I've no doubt that's the case. But I've also no doubt that that's going on in Western governments too. Boox devices are now Google Play protected, so they run the Google Play Store as standard. And all of your apps and accounts are managed by that. If there were serious issues to the security, then Google would not be certifying these devices. And Google Play Protect services are always updated, even on much older versions of Android. I also noticed that other large Chinese tech companies don't seem to have the same criticism leveled at them as Boox. I don't want to name names, but those larger tech companies are trusted implicitly. And so much of our tech is produced in China. Boox has taken the steps to reduce the risk, and now all of your data on your Boox account can be stored on a server either in the US or the EU. Crucially, if the Boox account is on a US server, it sends data to the US, not China. If it's on an EU server, then it sends data to the EU. So make sure when you first log into the device and you create an account that you select either the US or the EU server. And if you're still worried, then you could simply enjoy the tablet just as much never having signed into a Boox account. You can still back up all your data and your notes to Google Drive or whatever cloud service you like. And also, I've had no issue with giving my organization some permissions for managing Boox devices. So that allows me to have work profile Microsoft apps here. Again, if there were big risks, then I do trust that Microsoft would have those things flagged and they would not be allowing the devices anywhere near their cloud services. That being said, if you are working with very highly valuable and sensitive information on your tablet, perhaps sticking to whichever devices are supplied by your organization, that's better. Lastly, it's planned obsolescence, and this has come to the fore very recently with removing the Tab Ultra and putting the Tab Ultra C Pro. It's become a bit of a joke about the names of the next generation of Boox devices. What do you think is coming next in the comments? And whilst I do understand the frustration, I sort of take exception to the assertion that Boox is making the previous generation of devices obsolete by making a new device. Your Tab Ultra C is still working just as well as it was when you bought it. I suppose that we're used to Apple and Samsung, who release all of the models of iPhone and Galaxy Phone at the same time and say, here are this year's models if you want to upgrade or skip. And when they do that, you have the chance to jump in then and there and get the best of the best for a full year, or you can wait for the deals to come, knowing that the device will be only the best until the same time next year. So there's a kind of predictable churn of knowing when new devices are coming out. But those are massive companies with huge design teams and huge distribution teams who know what features they're expecting in their devices, in their models 2 or 3 years down the line. You can't really expect the same from a company which I think Boox has about 20 employees, although probably a few more now that their products are gaining in popularity. The way that I think that Boox are operating is a pretty quick turnover of idea into design, into release, into evaluate, and then iterate. And this is why there's often limited stock available in the devices which are only a year or so old. Or in the case with the Boox Tab Ultra C, where they straight up and said, yeah, we aren't making any more of this device, but we've improved it. And I think there's also limited availability of that Kaleido-free screen. And so they're thinking, well, we've only got so many of these, we might as well put them into the best devices we can make right now. So I do stand by what I said, love the one that you're with. If you're a proud owner of a Tab Ultra or Tab Ultra C, it's excellent. And the Pro model is just an iteration, a little bit of improvement on that. It has not made your device obsolete. Probably you ought to skip this generation. So unless you know that there's a new feature that's going to make a big difference in your workflow, just watch Boox innovate. Enjoy the little bit of an e-ink war we have going on right now, and hope that it will eventually drive the price right down and there'll be great devices available for everyone at every price point soon. And also know that Boox plan to bring you updates for at least 3 years after the launch of a device. And so those new software features, you won't have to wait long for them to come to your device. I hope that helps. I'm really interested in your opinion and what your take on all those things are. For what it's worth, that's my take on them all.